What is going on anyway? It's time again for me to share with you some of my ideas about this moon cycle. Hi, I'm Ann Headley, and I'm your host of What is Going On Anyway, my bi-weekly podcast. When Waterman Brook is high, and this is the brook that is next to my home, it makes a roaring sound that I can hear from my bedroom window, even when it's closed. And if I tune into that sound, I get a sort of fluttery feeling in my chest. It feels like excitement and anticipation. Things are happening, moving, flowing out there. But if the sound turns up just a little bit more, if the volume increases with a little more rain, a little bit of storminess, that feeling of excitement and anticipation turns to more of an anxious sensation. How high will it get? What will be washed away? There's no chance of holding on to that footbridge that we put in. It will either hang on through the torrent or be washed away, and all I can do is witness it from afar. And I know the word brook makes it sound tiny, and sometimes it is a tiny trickle, but when the brook is roaring, it's frightening. It's not anything that you could venture into to save something from the brook. You would need ropes and equipment, and you just stay away from it when it's raging like that. I'm just trying to give you this picture, right, in your mind if you don't know the brook and you don't know what it's like to, it's not a flash flood, but it is such a huge difference from that summertime trickle to that springtime deluge. That's not even the word. Torrent is the right word. So I'm just telling you this because that's how I'm feeling about this new moon time. I've been trying even more before I go into throwing the I Ching to see, what does this feel like? And this particular new moon, yes, it's a clean slate, but the reason that it's a clean slate is because there is a torrent wiping it clean. That's what it feels like. Now, astrologers are talking about this new moon being coupled with a Mars squaring Uranus, and that can mean like some jolts or shocks along the way. And so maybe it means the brook grows higher than expected. Maybe it will disrupt the bank. Maybe a tree gets knocked over, maybe worse. And symbolically, I'm wondering about our own raging brooks that, while usually could be a peaceful companion, now is moving so rapidly that it's frightening. And my advice for this moment is to give space to the things that are being washed away and witness those things that are being washed through. This is still a way of starting over sometimes. And we're in this key moment right before spring equinox in the Northern Hemisphere. And perhaps letting some things wash free is just right. It's just the right thing to do before we start planting seeds for the season ahead. There's this teensy promise of this relief, and I'm always looking for these teensy promises of relief, partly because I'm in that cycle of, I still cycle through migraines, and so in those moments when I'm migraine free, it's a promise of relief, at least for a little while. And I think that we're getting that right after this new moon starts. Maybe, I hope. These couple of weeks before official spring are key maple syrup season weeks for us on Magog Road. We tap the trees, we collect the sap, and we pool our time and resources so that we can fire and boil the sap in our neighbor's evaporator. It's a lot of work, and sometimes it gets messy scheduling our time to coordinate collecting before buckets overflow, to coordinate continuous wood fire boiling. And this is our coming back from winter time. It's an awakening Winter always has these challenges, at least for me. It's too dark, it's too cold, too windy, not enough snow or too much snow. And then the mud arrives, and the mud arrived early this year. It just grabs us, It's like the soil in this water, earth concoction says, hey, remember me? And it makes a needy grab at our feet, and we slip and slide into the muck. And the road gets so messy and muddy and ruddy. Sometimes we have even had to park at the end of the road and walk in. We thought we were going to have to do that, and then big dump trucks arrived and dumped gravel before we had to make that decision. It was last year or the year before, one of these past years, we had to park at the end of the road for, I don't know, it wasn't even a whole week. But it felt like living on an island, in that we were docking our cars and walking in. And it was romantic in a way, but we sure do love the convenience of just driving straight to the door. And kind of weirdly, the convenience of nearly every adult person on our road having their own individual car. I think I've talked about this before. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make common sense to me, even though I don't really want to give up the freedom that I have of being in my own car on my own time schedule. We say it's convenient, I guess, to be so individual. But when the elderly neighbor needs a ride, say, why is it that's only then we begin to know each other in that intimate way, that driving along, facing forward, shoulder to shoulder, flying through the air, that offers a kind of intimacy, Secrets seem a little less secret this way. This pod of metal and glass becomes a chamber of stories and laughter. There was a point when I was so overdone with driving my kids here and there. And at the same time of being overdone, it was a time that I could connect with teenager mind. So tender and offendable. I remember hearing, why are you breathing like that? But the car was still a way to share songs and little bits of life together. I miss that now. 2 of my kids are driving on their own, and they often drive the younger, and I have so much less car time with any of them. It's sort of become a cherished memory, and that's so strange to think about so quickly. Maple syrup season's a little bit like that. It's a little bit like driving together. We all have a job to do, a place to be, and there we are just pulling rich sweetness from a tree's blood to share it with each other and friends. It gives us these moments together at the end of winter, the beginning of a new season, walking side by side in the woods, standing by the fire in the small sugar shack. The kids join these springtime rituals, and it is quite a precious thing. And that's the season that I'm in now, maple syrup season. This new moon, I'm sketching out ways that life gives me a sense of value and pleasure, both together and separately. So value is really important to me, and pleasure is really important to me. And how do I insist on my value in the way I schedule my time and my life so that I can bring more joy and pleasure in? Not just valuing because I just need more and more and more money or appreciation or social, what do you call that? Social currency. But value because it gives me something back to offer back to my life. I'm going to give a little example to see if I can make sense of this. When I insist on more value in what I offer, I receive more pleasure in the offering. And this is my little example, anecdote. I recently changed my price for animal communication. And I've changed my price a lot. I started free, and then I did it for $35. And then I did it for a sliding scale, like pay what you want. And what I learned about doing it that way, this sliding scale thing, was that I really had a price, and then I was just using it sort of to be like hurting myself or being praised by the person. So if the person had more money to give, then I felt like I did a better reading. And if they had less money to give, then I felt like I didn't do as good a reading. And I sort of wanted something more like, I think I was trying to get up towards $60 or something like that. And I was hoping people would give it to me rather than just ask. Ugh. Like, it's so passive aggressive. It's so much about all the ways I have not learned to communicate well. And that's something that I'm trying to get better at. So at one point, my price went up to $100, felt great, and it felt like exactly the right price. And then recently, the price had to go up again to $120. Now, I'm saying that feeling even a little embarrassed, like that's such a high price. But I talked to this women in business coach. It's like free coaching that you can get in the state of Maine. And is it coaching? I don't know. Advice, business advice. They want women in business. So anyway, I had this meeting with her, and she said, like you could get in many different realms of advice, but she gave me this advice, which is do some market research, find out what other people are getting for the same service. So I did. And I think I looked through about 20 different animal communicators, different styles, different places, not all in Maine. I hired an animal communicator at a price, he charges $225 an hour. So that was part of my research. I hired him to find out, like, what is a $225 reading? How different is it, than what I'm offering, so that I could get a sense. And also I just kind of wanted to get a reading, and see what it's like on the other side of things. And I appreciated the reading, and it was wonderful, but I didn't feel like it was significantly different than what I do. And that gave me the courage to raise my price. So now what's happening for me is that when I get paid, I've inserted this sort of tip for myself, because I still think my readings are $100, and then I get this tip of $20. Now, some of that money comes out when it's paid online, that just these like service fees, which is fine. But I still feel like I'm getting this tip on top of my regular price, and it makes me feel amazing. Now, what's crazy about this is that I was putting myself previously in a position to let that great feeling of feeling well received and valued by my work be dictated by other people by saying, oh, pay what you can, pay what you will. Look, I still do animal communication free, sliding scale. I still have all other sorts of ways of offering this service to people who may not be able to afford the $120, but there's certainly people who could afford double that and triple that. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying about this. All I'm talking about in this moment is trying to point back to this idea that value and valuing myself has become an important pathway. And so that is what I'm talking about for this new moon too, that there is a pathway of letting value dance with pleasure and letting that be the way we understand our work and holding value for ourselves. Is how does it bring pleasure back into our lives? A news blurb popped up on my phone about a gray whale spotted 30 miles off the coast of Nantucket. The gray whale has been considered extinct in the Atlantic Ocean, which is where Nantucket is, for 200 years. And scientists suspect that the Arctic ice melt in summertime has allowed passage of this whale from the Pacific Ocean. They don't really know why or how this whale showed up. And I don't really have a profound commentary about global warming and Arctic ice melting, although that's incredibly concerning. I do just really like whales, and I like the idea of a whale showing up, and we don't know how it got there. I remember a long time ago, this was really before I did my own animal communication, and I was listening to someone who was talking to the whales, and in a not a direct sense that it's one person talking to one whale, but it was like the whale collective. And just hang in here with me as I go out into this realm of talking to whale collectives. It was interesting, and I read it, and it said something, the response back from the whales was, don't think that we don't have power and agency. And it was something of, we know what we're doing. And I just remember, now that's just a paraphrase, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I loved the idea of taking humans out of the center of whales, right? Whales are enormous, and we still think that we have control over them. And here this whale is popping up from nowhere. But I just like whales. And that news story recalled one of my very favorite poems. It was the first poem that got me to laugh out loud, I think, at poetry. I mean, poetry was pretty and profound, but this one got me to laugh. And it's called The Humpback by Mary Oliver. If you know it, I hope you enjoy my reading of it. And if you don't know it already, prepare for a special kind of poetry meal. Humpbacks. There is all around us this country of original fire. You know what I mean. The sky, after all, stops at nothing, so something has to be holding our bodies in its rich and timeless stables, or else we would fly away. Off Stellwagen, off the Cape, the humpbacks rise. Carrying their tonnage of barnacles and joy, they leap through the water. They nuzzle back under it like children at play. They sing, too, and not for any reason you can't imagine. 3 of them rise to the surface near the bow of the boat, then dive deeply, their huge, scarred flukes tipped to the air. We wait, not knowing just where it will happen. Suddenly, they smash through the surface. Someone begins shouting for joy, and you realize it is yourself as they surge upward, and you see for the first time how huge they are as they breach and dive and breach again through the shining blue flowers of the split water, and you see them for some unbelievable part of a moment against the sky, like nothing you've imagined, like the myth of the 5th morning galloping out of darkness, pouring heavenward, spinning. Then they crash back under those black silks, and we all fall back together into that wet fire. You know what I mean? I know a captain who has seen them playing with seaweed, swimming through the green islands, tossing the slippery branches into the air. I know a whale that will come to the boat whenever she can and nudge it gently along the bow with her long flipper. I know several lives worth living. Listen, whatever it is you try to do with your life, nothing will ever dazzle you like the dreams of your body. Its spirit longing to fly while the dead weight bones toss their dark mane and hurry back into the fields of glittering fire where everything, even the great whale, throbs with song. Don't I just need to give you a moment with that one? And if you're wondering, like, what was the funny part? I know that it's not like outwardly funny, but when she wrote, someone begins shouting for joy, and you realize it is yourself as they surge upward, that just made me laugh out loud. That idea that someone would be shouting for joy at the whales, because that would be me, before I knew what I was doing. So that just, I don't know, it touched me so deeply, those words, such a long time ago. I was in my 20s. So I always wonder at this point what the I Ching will have to share with us. What does the I Ching have to think about this new moon? And does it have anything to do with this clearing out like I'm talking about? Does it have some pleasure, some joy in it? Well, let's see. Dear Oracle, dear I Ching, what would you have us know about this new moon time, this particular time now? So we get hexagram 41, decreasing, and this is lake under the mountain. The early Chinese character for decreasing shows a hand with a vessel. Decreasing, you pour out what you have in offering. You focus your faith and hope on something higher than your everyday life and sacrifice lower things to this. When you do so with an undivided heart, it opens the flow of good fortune and your life becomes lighter and simpler. There's reassurance here. Even when you have little to give, making offerings is not wrong. Trusting your insight and persevering in your chosen direction, you understand why you are doing this rather than dwelling on what you are giving up. I still think this new moon is about giving up, and it's giving up something that isn't really like, I'm choosing this thing to give up. It's sort of like washed out of our hands, giving up. That's what it feels like to me. You may still wonder how you can do it or how much you're expected to give, but the offering need only be modest. You're not asked to give beyond your means. The questions to ask, why do you want to make such an offering? Well, I think in this case, maybe we don't want to be making such an offering. We just know that a shift is at hand. The next question is, how much is truly asked of you, and could this be simpler? For me, that question, could this be simpler, is, I forget to ask that question, basically. So that one maybe is the one to put on a Post-it on the mirror. Could this be simpler? Usually the answer is yes, right? And this other interpretation that I like to use, the I Ching workbook by R.L. Wing, has this to say about decline or decrease. The pendulum swings once again, this time moving into a general decline. Although the decline points to the beginning of a later flowering, that's what we're hoping for, that we're getting, this is the beginning of this time to plant some seeds for spring, the later flowering. The way you handle this current decrease in resources is of great importance. This decrease is in accord with the forces of the cosmos and therefore perfectly natural and completely unavoidable. You will ultimately benefit, however, from sacrifices you must now make. Accept this and respond appropriately by simplifying your life. A sincere and simplified approach to life will prevent you from making serious mistakes and will improve your sense of timing. If you find the decline unacceptable and continue the pretense of more opulent times, you will fall into error and out of touch with reality. Now, just personally, I am feeling like I'm wanting to simplify some of the foods that I'm eating and really enjoying just having very simply prepared food. I don't know if that's because of this seasonal change that we're in, why I would be wanting that right now, just like that letting go of winter maybe. But it's something that I've just been craving more, kind of like plain steamed vegetables, and just getting that through is really appealing to me right now. And that's a kind of simplification. And we do have a changing line 6. Expand your goals to encompass a more universal pursuit. In this way, others will lend support. Your successes will lead you to a new public awareness. You may find this social position and responsibility a desirable new lifestyle and benefit to many. Good for you, whatever that might be. Benefit to many, desirable new lifestyle. I like it for us. The hexagram changes to 19, nearing. And we've had nearing, or at least we got nearing last year. How does this want to grow? How can you take responsibility for its development? What would your greater self do? That's just a perfect kind of hexagram to get for springtime. How does this want to grow? With this maybe unfortunate washing away of whatever this might be in your personal life, in my personal life, in our professional lives, in our communities. How does this want to grow? How can you take responsibility for its development? And what would your greater self do? 19, nearing, is also known as promotion or approach. So maybe there's something there. Maybe there's some sort of delightful sense of newness for us. I mean, this does have to do with springtime, and that can feel very much like a hopeful time. Like the sprout of a new plant shooting forth its first burst of creative activity, you can now make your first positive advancements toward the attainment of your goal. So maybe you've been feeling for a while like, kind of like that revving of the engine, and it's just not catching. There may be hope. This is what my projection is, that there's a little hope in this next moon cycle that we'll feel like, oh, that's what it feels like to go. That's what it feels like. And surely throughout our lifetimes, there's a lot of stopping and starting. But once we get through this washing away, maybe there will be a sense of really moving towards whatever it is that your goal is. And, you know, sometimes the goal is just, I just want a peaceful home, or I want a happy, creative goal that I can achieve, you know, something like that. There seems like we're approaching a time where we can really respond to our creativity and feel some realization of that in our lives. That's what I'm hoping for. That sounds good to me. And that about does it for us this time. I wish you well during this new moon time, and that you can let go of whatever gets washed away and get your soil ready for planting new creative projects and pursuits this next moon cycle. So we've got a full moon coming up next, and I will be back with you then. For those of you who have been asking about the somatic practices, this is this funny, curious thing. I do have it set up so that you can sign up for the class ahead of time, but you can't sign up less than 24 hours ahead of time. And so what happens for me is, rather than just offering a free class, I'm waiting for somebody to sign up, and then I just forget about it, and then I don't do it. This is like full disclosure. There is one class that I did, and it's on my website, and you can follow along with that. And maybe I just need to do once a month or something like that. Change it up. So I'll figure that out, and I'll change that up. Maybe that'll be my big creative project. It doesn't sound that exciting to me. But at any rate, I did do one. It's on my website, www.annheadley.com. Go check it out. It's not that long. And maybe I could aim more for once a month, and I'll just update it on my site and drop the whole idea that I would do a class that people would show up to. Everything is just so... I feel inundated in that sense of things, of the things that I need to sign up for. Do you feel that way? I don't know. My email is too cluttery and crowded, and I sometimes just don't even want to engage in that sort of stuff. And that's sort of how I feel about that offering. It's just throwing another thing into a pile of clothes that I need to sort through. So if you're curious about that, just go look at my website, see one of those, and then I'll let you know when a new one pops up. Thank you for supporting me by listening. Thank you to those of you who offer me feedback, who share your ideas about the podcasts and contact me. I really appreciate the back and forth and the idea exchange that's happening by me putting these words out here and you sharing back with me. It's pretty special. So until next time, may you be well and may you know peace. And may all beings, whether known to me or unknown, be well, and may all beings know peace. Bye for now.